What happened to the lawyer who got Epstein his bizarrely lenient plea deal when he was first arrested on sex trafficking charges in Florida? What happened to the lawyer who got him that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Well, Trump hired him to be his own lawyer. What happened to the U.S. attorney who gave Jeffrey Epstein that bizarrely lenient plea deal? Trump put him in his cabinet in his first term. Well, who then prosecuted Epstein a second time when he was brought up on federal charges? That was the SDNY line prosecutor who Trump inexplicably fired last week. Who was in charge of the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons when Epstein then killed himself in federal custody? President Donald Trump. Who bragged to a reporter about how much Epstein seemed to like women on the younger side? Who said Epstein was a lot of fun to be with? Who bragged that he was friends with Epstein for 15 years? Who flew on his plane at least 7 times? And who now says that everybody needs to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein right now? Answers there are Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, and Donald Trump.
We don't give a fuck! Jesus! We don't give a fuck!
All of the girls I want, except for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you...
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age... I don't want to be
the
like...
upper bracket, yeah.
Foley with, 12-year-olds.
Can I...
Accusations! These are not accusations. This is false accusations. And
have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
After the FBI raided Epstein's Florida mansion, after being tipped off by a concerned stepmother that her stepdaughter was being paid by Jeffrey Epstein $300 for massages, they found phone messages between all of these different girls who also got paid that $300, verifying everybody's story, while also finding photos and hidden cameras in 2 of the massage rooms. But what they didn't find were the hard drives for the computers that were recently taken out right before the raid. So surprisingly, the FBI arrested Jeffrey Epstein. But by September of 2007, Epstein signed a non-prosecution agreement with Alan Dershowitz and federal prosecutors, getting off scotch-free. So then fast forward to June of 2008, Jeffrey Epstein, he pleads guilty to these charges and was sentenced to 18 months in jail. Weird thing being, he served 13 of those months under work release, meaning he left jail to work, then came back just to sleep, something that none of those 30 victims even knew about. So when those victims found out, they sued Jeffrey Epstein for $50 million. But this is what prompted Virginia Giuffre to come forward about her experiences with Jeffrey Epstein. But she decided not to go anonymous, and she went completely public. So she also sued Epstein, but settled out of court. But that really didn't stop her. She started joining countless other lawsuits with countless other victims, leading the charge for all these different lawsuits, mostly against Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, with the main one being one in 2015 against Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and Prince Andrew, with the photo that they took being the key evidence behind all of this actually transpiring, along with her alleging in her most recent lawsuit before she passed away that the FBI funded, controlled, and managed the activity of Jeffrey Epstein, which seems viable when you find out that Jeffrey Epstein had a bunch of different passports that can only be issued by the US Department of State, which is responsible for verifying, producing, and distributing the passports. Reason being that each and every passport that an American citizen is given has biometric chips, holograms, microtexts that are all impossible to replicate.
Hey, bro, come on now, dog.
Come on, man.
Epstein flees to Israel while he negotiates his deal with Acosta. Some question why he was allowed to even keep his passport while his team is undergoing negotiation with the federal government.
Can you explain how normal that is?
That is not normal. Yeah. So that is extremely not normal.
If you have money like that, you're a flight risk.
We do know that he was found with false passports that were inside of his house in New York City, so it's possible that he even...
what do you mean?
Yes, yeah. Can you Google it, please, Joey? In the age of the barcode, there's no false passport, okay? When's the last time you guys flew into America? Do you know how much biometric data and all that stuff is there? It's like, this is not happening.
But like CIA can issue passports.
Yeah, CIA can issue a passport under that will clear State Department.
Which would confirm the connections to intelligence.
So September 2007, Alex Acosta offers Epstein non-prosecution agreement despite massive evidence of a trafficking ring that crosses state lines, a textbook definition of a federal case.
While he's here or while he's away?
While he's in Israel. He must spend 18 months in the Palm Beach County Jail. He has weekend release. He's allowed 12 hours a day, 6 days a week to basically do whatever he wants. Under this non-prosecution agreement, the federal government grants immunity for all crimes that were under investigation of that indictment to Jeffrey Epstein and to all unindicted co-conspirators, including Ghislaine Maxwell.
Like, now I don't have to pretend anymore. Good women are dead. Evil bitches, rise up!
He killed himself.
What did you think before you got in office? Did you think that Epstein was murdered?
No. When you're in that kind of confinement, we call it solitary confinement, you're not supposed to have these things that you are able to hang yourself with. That's the whole point of the strict rules in there. You're not supposed to have 6 feet of cloth that you can dangle from the ceiling so you can hang yourself. This is prison 101. Yeah. So I agree with you. This doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a suicide.
What I was told, what I'd read, was that the guards were not paying attention or were sleeping.
Well,
right?
And in short order, you'll see it.
Is that correct?
Well, it's hard to surmise that from a video, right? Like,
right.
Where they do you know what happened to these guards? Supposedly they were going to get charged, but I've never heard anything that happened to these prison guards. Maybe we should try to find them and let's talk to them. Do guards doze off on the night shift? Yeah. But no one can get in to the cell. And if they had gotten in to the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
In these units, there's supposed to be 24/7 guard duty on him directly. And from what I was able to learn in this, in the lead up to his suicide, is the guard fell asleep. Now, I don't really buy that.
Are you familiar with Mr. Stu Peters?
Not off the top of my head.
He made 8 separate appearances on his podcast.
You be all right, nigga. Tough, right?
By the time I was 16, I brought him up to 75 girls, all the ages of, 14, 15, 16, people going from 8th grade to 9th grade at just school parties is where I'd recruit him from.
All Jeffrey cared about was go find me more girls. His appetite was insatiable. He couldn't stop. He wanted new, fresh, young faces every single day.
The sheer volume of girls, the frequency, sometimes several or many in the same day, the age of the girls. In some cases, there were victims that didn't know each other, had never met each other, but they had basically the same story.
I remember there was a staircase, and it was kind of like a spiral almost.
And she brings us up the stairs, and it was like spiral stairs. You walked into his bedroom, around his bed, to almost like a very little hall, and then it was another door. And that's where everything would happen, was in his bathroom. He would have a dresser, and it was filled with the first drawer was lotion, and then the third drawer down was sex.
Before you know it, I'm being lent out to politicians and to academics and to people that royalty and people that you would never think, how did you get into that position of power in the first place if you're this disgusting, evil, decrepit person on the inside?
Some people are really fucking stupid.
You said, and it sure made sense to me, that the key to this case is Ghislaine Maxwell, and that Congress should give her some form of use immunity to get her to talk, because you said she has all the secrets. My question to you is, what's in it for her to do that if all she gets is use immunity? What about cutting her a deal with the sentence she currently has?
Well, that should be done. The sentence she currently has is not a sentence that was really imposed on her. It was imposed on the dead Jeffrey Epstein. You don't get 20 years for being an assistant or a secretary, even if there were serious crimes. And she had nothing to do with any alleged trafficking. In any event, she should have her sentence commuted. She should be given total immunity, called before Congress, and she'll tell everything. She knows everything. She made all the reservations. When I had to fly down to represent him in front of the Palm Beach District Attorney's office or in front of the U.S. Attorney's office, she's the one who made the arrangements. She knows who was on his plane. She knows who was innocent. If there were any guilty people, she knows who they are. And if you gave her complete immunity and let her out of prison and made a deal with her, this would solve the problem forever. The real problem is that because Jeffrey Epstein is dead, there's no one to hold responsible except her. And so she has borne the brunt of his wrongdoing, even though she was not responsible anywhere near the degree to which he was.
I hear your point about her sentence being too long, but she was held accountable, and now you're saying release her. I'm not sure how that's going to go over with the public.
No, I agree. It's a difficult decision to make, but she's already served a long period of time. We're not going to get the whole story unless Ghislaine Maxwell is prepared to testify as to the whole story. And so you got to bite the bullet and you got to say, look, if we really want the whole story out, she served a long prison term already. Let her out of prison, give her total immunity, and she'll have no reason not to testify as to everything. And if there are, in fact, guilty people, let them, in fact, be punished. But if there are falsely accused people, let the false accusers be punished. There has to be justice on all sides of this issue.
So Donald Trump, the president of the United States, raped a 13-year-old girl. Her name was Katie Johnson. 2016, she filed a federal lawsuit and then disappeared. I'm going to spare the details, but she said that he threatened to unalive her family as well as her if she ever said anything. Katie said that Donald Trump also told her about a 12-year-old girl named Maria that he essayed and then she disappeared. And here's a photo of Donald Trump with 13-year-old Katie. Court documents, sworn affidavits, witnesses. This is not a conspiracy. This is not unproven. There are records. Donald Trump wasn't just a friend of Epstein. He was in the files, multiple photos with him. He was a client. He's a rapist. He's on the Epstein list, but he's protected by wealth, power, and every institution that benefits from protecting male patriarchal dominance over just women existing. And through all of this, the media looked away, the Democrats looked away, and the Republicans cheered. So I want to ask, what can we do in our day-to-day lives to tear down these systems that perpetuate violence against youth, women, and all survivors?
I met Donald Trump at some parties I attend that I was working for Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. There was about 3 or 4 times that I had encounters with Donald Trump. I was 13. The first time that I met Donald Trump was at a party at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. There was an orgy going on, and he was kind of watching off in the distance, and he basically asked if I could come over and give him a hand job. And at first, I wasn't very comfortable with it. This was like my first or second, first party, and I didn't think that was my responsibility. But my recruiter told me that I needed to do it, so I agreed to. And then he, I began to. Sorry, this is a little difficult, but. Before I gave him a hand job, he kind of slapped my hand away and said, you need to use a glove. And the recruiter ran over and handed me a glove and said, no one touches Mr. Trump's penis without a glove. So I needed to use a glove. I gave him a hand job, and then immediately after, he had an orgasm, he left, and I didn't see him again at that party. Jeffrey Epstein is a billionaire friend of Donald Trump's that was responsible for throwing the sex parties. I originally came to New York trying to be a model, and in my travels I met a girl named Tiffany there who was very interested in me and said that that's what she did, is that she helped girls get what they wanted, and she could help me get into modeling, that she knew a lot of people that were higher ups and that it would be no problem. And so that's why, but I would just basically have to come model at a couple of events and meet some people. It would be no sweat. So, of course I went, that sounded like no big deal. And she was recruiting the girls to come to these parties. And they all looked, most of them were, my age. There was, maybe a couple girls that were maybe 14 or 15, but it seemed to me like we were all very young, so. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein knew that I was 13 years old. When he interviewed me, he asked me to get down to my bra, just my panties, and I thought that was weird, but modeling, maybe it was something about my figure. And he asked that I give him a massage. So then he asked me my age. He asked me, and I told him, told him that I was 13. I told him why I was there. And he basically said, well, you'll do, I'm sure that you'll fit pretty nicely here. And then he tried to basically slip himself inside of me, and I pushed him away, and I said, I'm because at that point in time I still believed that there was models and then there was the girls that did that. Like, I thought there was a separation. So I told him that I wasn't interested in that, but he said that I would do. And as far as Donald Trump, he knew that I was 13, and I believe that Tiffany told him he seemed to take a liking to me because I was I was so young, and I was also a virgin. So I don't know. It seemed like he wasn't really into having girls that were liked by the other guys. He kind of, the whole glove. He kind of liked things to be his first. If that, for lack of a better term, but he was the one who wanted to get to a girl before everyone else did. Donald Trump knew that I was 13 because the first night that I was there, Tiffany actually suggested that she had a whole bunch of different wigs, and I expressed interest in them. I always told her that I would love to walk around with blue hair, and so I tried some on, and there was a blonde wig that she said that looked great on me. So I wore that wig, and Donald Trump had specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter, and she said, well, she's 13 as well. So he knew the first time that he saw me, but he took a liking to me because I look like his daughter. The reason I'm coming out now is when it happened originally, I just wanted to forget about the whole incident. And when I saw that he was running for president, I felt that it was my responsibility to come out and tell our country what kind of man this person is. I don't think that he should even be the dog catcher, let alone running the greatest country in the world. After I met Tiffany at the bus station, she took me to, basically went to her house, her apartment, and got ready. I put on a blonde wig because it seemed fun to pretend to be someone different, but we went to the party that I was basically interviewing for, and Jeffrey Epstein was the one that was running the party. He had a quick meeting with everyone that was employed there, and then he had a private interview with me. The first time that I met Jeffrey Epstein, he did try to force himself inside of me without getting the go-ahead or anything, and then it was probably about the third or fourth party is when he basically forced. It was another massage, and it was basically like it wasn't sex, but there was penetration, and I told him that I didn't want that, but he kind of got a little irritated. So I don't know. There was something about him that I guess I kind of held him I held a lot of resentment towards him. By that time that happened, I kind of already started catching on that maybe I wasn't there for modeling and maybe I was just getting used for things, and I felt that kind of held him responsible. I did receive money to go to these parties. After every party, I was paid by Mr. Epstein. There wasn't, out of all the girls that were there with me, most of them were 13, 14. I think the oldest one might have been 16, just turned 16. And she'd been there for a while. It was Tiffany. He liked to watch other people have sex. He's a germ, doesn't like germs, so he, rather than partaking, he just watches. So and Tiffany had informed him that I was the virgin, and so I was basically so it was Tiffany who introduced us.
Okay.
Second time that I saw Mr. Trump was same scenario. He was onlooking at an orgy, and Tiffany came over to me and said that Donald Trump had requested that I perform oral sex on him, and I'd never done something like that with anybody, so I was a little nervous. So I walked up to him, and he was sitting there very proud, and I just kind of moved in that direction, and he kind of slapped me away and said, "What are you doing? You need to put a condom on," like I was some dirty filth or something without a condom. Tiffany ran over and handed him a condom and apologized, profusely, and said that would never happen again. And she looked at me and scolded me basically like a child and said that, that's not how, Donald Trump always, anytime you touch his penis, it needs to have a condom on or a glove, and especially when it comes to performing oral sex. So I apologized, and then I performed oral sex on him. And once he was done, he hopped up, and that's the last I saw of him at that party. It's like once he's done, he's out. So.
Okay.
Sometimes before some of the things that I noticed that were weird with him was sometimes before the parties he would come over, and Jeffrey Epstein and himself would kind of banter back and forth, and he was Donald Trump was very racist. He said a lot of racist things. Like there was a lot of comments towards Mr. Epstein about being Jewish, and called him a Jew bastard, so that he was cheap, and there was some words I didn't even understand. Something about the shape of his penis being directly related to his mole, or I'm not too familiar with the Jewish traditions, so, but I'm pretty sure that whatever he was saying wasn't very nice. Also referred to people of Hispanic or Hispanic name, they called them spics. That was around the first time that the World Trade Center had gotten the bombed in the 90s, and he was talking about the towel heads and how we would just be better off if we didn't let him in, or basically got rid of every single one that was already here. And I felt it made me really uncomfortable, really, really uncomfortable. He also loved to call black people niggers, and Arabic people he called sand niggers. The only time that he tried to give me some money was our last encounter together, where he acted out a rape fantasy. It just, I was forced to give that money back because Jeffrey Epstein paid us after the party. So, but he just gave me the money. I don't even know why he gave it to me. Maybe to make me feel more cheap, but it was a pretty. It was a rape fantasy to him, but I wasn't playing. So there was those 2 times, and then there was after the next thing that Tiffany approached me with was that he had a fantasy where he walked in on his maids basically making out, and that it was some type of fantasy for him. So she asked, I mean, at that point I was like, I don't want to be involved with anything that has to do with him. But she's like, you were just basically the other one. So there's nothing that you will have to do. Just don't, he's requesting you to be involved. So I reluctantly, I felt like I didn't have a choice there, but it was basically he's walking in, his 2 maids. I was one of the maids. I was the white maid. And there was a Spanish girl, Maria, who was the Hispanic maid. And we were making out, and he walks in and he gets really angry and threatens to call immigration on Maria if she doesn't come over and make things right and give him a blowjob. So while she is over there giving him a blowjob, I am just trying to, I'm supposed to look scared, like, oh no, and cleaning up things and pretending like I'm trying to go back to my job as a maid. And then he's being so rude to Maria. I felt so bad for her, even though I guess it just didn't seem like a fantasy. It didn't seem like it's the weirdest fantasy as far as that. He was threatening to call immigration on her, so that she didn't know how to. She wasn't even near going down to give him. Perform oral sex on him before he slapped her away and said, what are you doing? You need to put a condom on, and she's trying to, I'm so sorry, and he's like, you can't even understand what you're saying, it just, speak English, he called her derogatory comments, and then he's like, you know what, you don't know what you're doing, have her come over and show you how it's done. And so I said that I didn't, I had to go over there or else he was going to call immigration on Maria. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I felt that, he said that if I didn't show her how to perform oral sex on him, then he was going to call immigration on her and then get rid of us both. It was anything that was in relation to him getting off or being satisfied or happy had to do with him being in power, but extreme power. And it's very hard to even. It was always intimidating when he was like that. It was always, you didn't really know if it was true or. Like if you refused to play along, would he really call immigration on Maria? Would he really get rid of us both? And I didn't even want to know what that meant. I always didn't. It wasn't a game. It just felt like it wasn't a game. Yeah. The one night that I had the blonde wig on, he mentioned that I looked like, that I reminded him of his daughter. And actually the maid fantasy, I didn't have a blonde wig on. I was trying to stay away from blonde wigs at the time. But he actually told Tiffany that that's what he wanted me to wear. Like, he wanted it, and anytime I put it on, anytime I had it on and he'd see me, he would say, oh man, you look, and it wasn't like oh, you remind me of my daughter. It was this sick, evil, like, you remind me of my daughter. It was just this weird pleasure, sick smile. Like, I don't even want to know what he was thinking about. I could imagine what he was thinking about. After the parties would end, we were to report to Mr. Epstein and basically tell him everything that happened, with who, what they liked, what they disliked, if there was any requests, if there was any talk about anything. That's what, we told Mr. Epstein everything. And then he paid us, and then we got to go home. And with me, I would either, I normally got taken to the airport, so to go back home. The fact that Trump has a chance to be the next president makes me feel disgusting inside. I've always been proud to be an American. I think we live in a beautiful country. But I just see him ruining everything. He's a horrible, what he portrays on the outside isn't even that great, but people don't even know the half of how evil, how sick and twisted that man is. I have a friend that's been my friend ever since the school year that I stopped going, the 8th grade. I confided her, and she knows all about it. She knows everything. I mean, I destroyed everything of any planes. I couldn't risk my dad finding out. And now I think I'm old enough to where at that point I didn't want to not be his little girl. I didn't want to lose my dad. Basically, I would never, as far as keeping proof of any of the trips, the only person, I never told my parents, there would be no there would be no good outcome of telling my parents. They would have grounded me. I would have never been allowed out of the house. My father would have come unglued. I did tell a friend, she's still my best friend to this day. She knows everything. She knows it all. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to save the country that I believe that we have. I know what he does behind closed doors. If that's all, I'm willing to sacrifice my life to put our country back in the right, going maybe in some type of positive direction. Not even, there's no right or wrong, but a positive direction. This guy's not going to take us anywhere positive. As far as my life changing by coming out with this information, I've thought long and hard about whether or not I should, and I've gone back and forth. But I think that I think that the American people need to know what kind of man this person is. And if my life changes because of that, then so be it. But the American people need to know what they're dealing with. If I had the chance to talk to Donald Trump, I would run the other way. I'm scared of him like I've never been scared of anything else in my entire life. I can't explain it to you, but the fear of him even being in a next room, I have a panic attack. The last encounter that I had with Donald Trump, Tiffany approached me about a rape scene that was supposed to be played out, and I didn't like the sound of that at all. But Tiffany assured me that it wasn't going to be, if it was anything I wasn't comfortable with, we could stop. That she would be right there, and that it wouldn't get out of hand, and that it was a fantasy, it wasn't really going to happen. And so I told her that I would. She basically, Tiffany was always nice to me. It wasn't that I trusted her, else and I wouldn't always trusted her or done what she asked me to. But she was there, and he came in, and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose, and he tied him. They were so tight it hurt to even lay there. And I tried to say something, and it was he just shut up, shut up, bitch. It was basically he was being really, really rough. And I understand. It just didn't seem like a fantasy. And I started to get scared, and he was basically ripping my clothes off, and I was actually I got freaked out. I told him that I didn't want to do this. I screamed over for Tiffany. She was like, Mr. Trump, and she's only, this is scaring her. And he's like, oh, you shut up too. He just turned into this animal. It was like a completely different person. It was like everyone in the room was scared of him. And it was like I couldn't do anything about it. And he ripped off all my clothes, and he started to basically have sex with me, and I was screaming because I'd never had sex before. It was my first time, and Tiffany was yelling at him too. She was saying that I was a virgin, and he told us to just shut the fuck up, and just basically took my virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. And that's basically begging for him to just stop. And Tiffany didn't know what else to do either. No one was there to help us, or me. And so after the fact, he basically finishes it. It didn't take that long at all. But it was just, it felt like it was like 5.5 hours. It felt like it was an eternity. Like, I don't even know how long it was, but he was done, and I was crying, and Tiffany was consulting me, and she was, apologizing. She told me that she just never put me in that situation again. But he comes over mad because I was crying, and he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. He basically didn't say took my virginity. He said, I should be glad that someone like Donald Trump popped my cherry, and not some pimply little 14-year-old. And I just was like, what if I said, what if I get pregnant? Not even talking to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I was talking to Tiffany. And he said, well, you'll get an abortion then, bitch, and then just walked away. And I asked, I told Tiffany I needed to go home. I never went back again. I guess it's for you to decide, if I don't have any kids myself, because I'm afraid to have kids, because who knows what kind of damage they can get into. But if you have a 13-year-old daughter, and would you be okay with the person who's running our country doing that to your little girl? And I don't know. I just want people to know. I think that I have a faith in our society that we'll make the right choice. He seemed to be taking great pleasure in dominance and control, and just the more I screamed, the more I got scared, the more he was enraged and enraged with power, and it was like he was just charged with it. It was scary. My experience with Donald Trump has made it to where I can't be in a healthy relationship, much less I can't be in a relationship without myself sabotaging it. I don't do well. I've been in a couple of relationships. They're never of interest to me normally, but one in particular that was he was a wonderful man, and I completely, knowing I had subconsciously, I couldn't even control myself. It was like I had to get him out of my life because, I don't know why. It was like anytime anyone loves me, I don't feel worth it, or, I don't even know how to explain it. I can't friends, I can have acquaintances that, guys that are acquaintances, but I just, anytime it's maybe someone expressed anything else besides that, I can't. I take some type of pleasure, I don't take pleasure in it, but subconsciously, whether I mean to or not, sometimes I've meant to. It's like I've purposely hurt their feelings, just so they'll never talk to me again. Like, I make sure that it's not ever a possibility. Donald Trump destroyed my feeling of self-worth and my self-esteem when it was still growing, like when it just bloomed. It hadn't even had a chance to experience anything.
A lot of shit pissed me off. Like we got Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump being friends. Who didn't know this though? You know what I'm saying? This shit was all the way this was going on in 1997. Donald Trump was friends with Jeffrey Epstein for years, since the 80s, supposedly. Supposedly they've been friends and they had to cut ties because, according to Epstein's brother, I believe it was Aaron Epstein, he said that Donald Trump's a scam artist and he was getting over. Um, he was getting over on people, so he tried to cut ties with Donald Trump. Who knows what their business dealings was? We're talking about two people that was multimillionaires, correct? We're talking about two men that have private jets and private islands that could do whatever they see fit. Um, and with this level of power and influence and money, they feel like they can do anything, right? And they can have, you know, young girls around. And what can I really say after I just showed you guys all this crazy shit? The girl in the longest interview is Katie Johnson. She opened a case against Donald Trump in 2016, and she dropped it because, supposed death threats and everything else. But if you guys remember when Donald Trump first uh, got nominated to be president, a lot of women came out. I'm talking about like 20, 21, 22. I ain't talking about Stormy Daniels. I'm talking about women that was in beauty pageants, women that worked in Mariagalo, wherever the hell his island is, his maids. A lot of women, even his fucking ex-wife came out and said that after she divorced and all this and all that, he was still doing crazy stuff. So I don't know what you guys expect to see in the Epstein files, but at the end of the day, this is just something that we already knew about Donald Trump. He was kind of a sexual deviant already, um, according to these women that came out uh, early before he even became president. You know what I'm saying? PBS and CNN and a lot of these major political came up came out with a lot of these women that has already pretty much exposed Trump for being a sexual deviant, if you will. The way that he approached women and getting them to do certain things and was groping them and grabbing them and kissing on them and stuff like this. This was already public record. All this was already in the news. So for him to go from, I mean, for him to go from doing this sexual deviant shit to becoming president, now to be through into the Epstein case, is that out of the ordinary? Do you think that Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with girls going to Epstein Island? Did you think that him having the island just like Jeffrey Epstein, him getting sued by multiple women, sued he got Just look up Donald Trump lawsuits. How many lawsuits does he have against himself? Look up look up the women that came out against Donald Trump. They're all names. They some of them remained anonymous, but their names is all out there. They all admitted to what he did during a certain time, and either he plead out of court, I mean, not plead, but settled out of court, or he just, let the accusers linger. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes they didn't take it to court. They just said what happened. So I don't know what else you expect a little old angry dude to do, because the power that the angry little hag has, we can't really do anything. We could report on it. I could tell you exactly what's going on. But if you go vote for the man, if you go um, support the man, donate to the man, if you go and do these type of things to support a person that gets accused of this type of stuff constantly, then you get what you ask for. I'm not trying to persuade you in any way, but I'm just trying to throw out the facts that this is what's going on. I hope you guys understand that a lot of politicians aren't as clean cut as you might assume. Assume that they're trying to get in your pockets. Assume that. Assume that they're doing some shady shit on the inside where you won't be able to see. Assume that they don't have your best interests. Assume that. And it is what it is, man. Silence acceptance. We ain't have it. Like, comment, subscribe.